Since it looks like this will be a small group, as you have questions, I think you can go ahead and feel free to ask questions as we go along.
Could I get it there? Oh, there you go.
Maria, where is La Sierra University? I'm not familiar with that.
Yes, La Sierra University is in Riverside. And so we're very close to the west side of Riverside, close to the 15 and the 91. We're right north of the 91 and the 15. East of the 15, yeah.
Not planning on Southern California. I lived in Southern California for many years. We still refer to freeways as our major geographic mark.
Yes. I think there was a whole SNL thing about that, right? About how Californians describe where they go everywhere.
It's not about distance, it's always about time. So how far away is this? Oh, it's an hour. Well, but how far? It's an hour. Unless of course you leave at 5 o'clock and then it's 2 hours.
Right. Yes. I had when I was teaching high school, I was commuting from Orange County to LA Unified. And so I would leave at like 5 in the morning so I could avoid traffic and get a lot of work done before school and then leave as soon as possible after school. Yeah, it was an interesting 5 years.
It's a long time.
Nadia, if it's all right with you, I'm going to make you a co-host so that you can admit anybody who comes in after I get started here.
Okay, I'm on it.
Building bridges.
So we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Eric Engdahl. I am a professor emeritus at Department of Teacher Education at California State University, East Bay. I'm also past president, at least for a few more months, of the California Council on Teacher Education. And this particular webinar is being done sort of under the auspices of the special interest group, the Arts Ed group at CCTE. And another important member of that group is Nadia, who I have asked to be our co-host. So as I said, as we go along, please either put questions in the chat or raise a hand. I think that it's small enough. Go ahead and take questions as we go along. It'd probably be better if you could all mute yourself while we go through, and then everybody's sound quality will be good and strong. So just a little bit of background information about me before we get started. While I was chair at the Department of Teacher Education at Cal State East Bay, we launched the first theater and dance credential programs in the state of California after they were revived. And in order to do that, I was very much involved with the writing of the new California Arts Standards. I co-chaired the writing of the California Arts Framework and was involved with the CTC on developing the teacher performance expectations, as well as working with Pearson on the CSETs. So I have had a pretty deep understanding of what all is going on with this particular set of information. So without any more ado, let's start, and we will explore Prop 28. So most of you are probably heard of or are familiar with what Prop 28 means or what it is, and this will hopefully give us a chance to look at it more deeply and to be able to look at it, especially from the lens of teacher education. I just really need to give thanks to some organizations, a lot of information I've taken from them, the San Diego County Office of Ed, Orange County Office of Ed, Create California, and the California County Superintendent's Arts Initiative. So our guiding questions today are: what is Prop 28? What are the ramifications for teacher education? And what do IAGs need to know?
Smaller and go.
So it is called officially in law the Arts and Music in Schools Funding Guarantee and Accountability Act, Proposition 28. In order to think about what this means, let's just quickly review the essentials of comprehensive arts education programs. The sources for all of this are noted in the slides, as you can see, and I'm happy to send this slide deck to anyone who wants to look at it. It will also be in the video, obviously. So, comprehensive art education programs allow students to develop into artistically literate, creative, and capable individuals. For this to happen, it is essential that arts instruction is sequential, standards-based, comprehensive, and prioritized. Comprehensive means standards-based sequential instruction for all students in all 5 arts disciplines during the regular school day each year from TK through 12. We should note that when the new standards were written, based on the national standards, a 5th art form was added, and that's media arts. So access to each of the arts disciplines through articulated feeder programs support transitions between school levels, and that allows arts education to continue without interruption. So this is one of the graphics that the California Department of Education so loves to put together. They have a great understanding of how PowerPoint graphics work. But you can see there that the fundamental components of arts education have to do with, obviously, staffing, curriculum, standards-based curriculum, scheduling within facilities to teach the arts, safety, and art materials and equipment. So from the framework, something else that is really important for arts education in the state of California, and something that we were really concerned about when we were writing the framework, is this statement: given the diversity of the arts classroom, all instruction should be culturally relevant to the students so that students see themselves in the artwork of their culture and social identity within their educational system. This validates the students as they see who they are is found within the world of the arts, and that all art created by all people is equally important. And that really is, I think, a guiding principle for all of us as we're putting together comprehensive art programs and supporting those programs. So some background information. Prop 28 was passed on November 8th, 2022. It was approved by California voters by almost 65%. Just to give you a little bit of context, Prop 98 squeaked by just barely above 50%. So the point of the act, the main author of the act is Austin Buettner. This act ensures every student in California's K-12 public schools has access to high-quality arts education by increasing and stabilizing funding for arts and music education so that schools can develop and maintain high-quality course of study in arts and music year after year. It holds public officials accountable for using such funds for arts and music, and it's all done without raising taxes, which may be one of the things that the voters of California were pleased about. So the way that it works, Prop 28 provides K-12 public schools, including charter schools, an annual allocation for arts and music programs beginning this year, 23-24. The money will start to flow out of the California Department of Ed. My understanding right now is sometime in January or February. So that money will start to flow soon. Beginning this year, this measure requires the state to provide additional funding to support that arts instruction and programming. The amount of funding would be equal to 1% of the Prop 98 funding that K-12 schools received in the previous year as part of the May budget revise. This funding is considered a payment above the constitutionally required amount of school funding as required in Prop 98. Obviously, the legislature can reduce funding for arts education in a really bad budget year when it suspends the constitutional spending requirement that is Prop 98. This funding is allocated directly to schools, school districts, with 70% of the share based on LEA enrollment in the prior fiscal year, and the remaining 30% based on the percentage of low-income students. By the way, these numbers are out for this year, and you will see a link. You can look up any school in the state and see what their funding allocation is for this year. And there are some very specific rules that exist within Prop 28 about how the funding needs to be spread and spent. Bad news is none of it goes directly to IAGs. So if that's what you're here for, I'm sorry. So this is from the California Department of Education's Prop 28 FAQ page. And by the way, if you have not joined the listserv for Prop 28 from the CDE, I strongly recommend that you do so. I will put that link into the chat a little bit later. There's a couple of documents that are going to be coming out in either this month, either in December or January, which are going to require public comment. And that is a waiver form and a reporting form. So it's really important that the field get in there and comment to the CDE on those forms. So for Prop 28, only 1% of total funding to an LEA can go to administration. They don't have to spend 1%, but they can spend up to 1% of their allocation for administration. For LEAs with 500 students or more, 80% of the funds must be used to employ certificated or classified employees to provide arts education instruction. So again, that is a really important number. 80% of the funding has to go to hire teachers, either certificated or classified CTE teachers, who will be teaching the arts directly as employees of the district. For those same LEAs with over 500 pupils, the remaining 20% can be used for training, supplies and materials, and arts education partnership programs. Please note the word can. A school does not have to do the 80-19-1 split between administration, supplies, and teaching. An LEA can actually decide to allocate 100% of their funding to hiring teachers. So that 80-20 those are minimums and not required numbers. The only one that's really required is that 80%. So how it works: at each school site or preschool, the principal or the program director shall develop an expenditure plan for the funds. Each school can determine which program or programs it will offer. And again, the schools, the LEAs, the districts need to make these decisions and allot funding in collaboration with the community, teachers, families, and students, so that they best serve those people they serve. So each school needs to detail exactly which programs are funded by Prop 28 money, whether it's the number of full-time equivalent teachers, classified personnel, and teaching aides, the number of pupils served, and the number of school sites providing arts education programs with such funds. There also needs to be a yearly audit that goes to the school board and then to the state to ensure that these funds are being spent in the manner that the law and the proposition requires. So, and that also gets reported publicly on school websites. A couple of important things. Schools have 3 years to spend this funding. So even though schools will begin to receive funding this year, they're not obligated to spend it this year. And a lot of the schools that I have been talking to, districts across the state, they're all approaching it quite differently. Some of the larger districts who have more funds available have actually started their Prop 28 hiring and funding in the fall of this year without knowing how much exactly they were getting and without having the funds. And what they will do is backfill those funds later once the funds arrive. I would, in my experience and who I've been talking to, most schools and school districts are taking a go slow approach. The California Department of Education has been somewhat slow to release everything that they need to release, especially procedures and the funding. So a lot of schools are adopting a wait and see. We'll wait once we find out more about what actually the CDE is going to be doing and how we report. And frankly, there's another reason. The other reason is that many schools don't have the administrative staff right now to be able to look deeply into Prop 28 and to inform principals and site leaders exactly what it is that they need to do. It's all happened very quickly, and it has a lot of huge ramifications, and a lot of schools are just going, all right, we're going to wait, we're going to see. Since we do have 3 years, any funds that are not expended go back into the Prop 28 fund and get redistributed statewide. So that is where all of those district funds are placed. You can look that up. You can look it up by school to see what's going on. Before we get to this background information, one more thing that is important about the law, and maybe it's coming up later, but I want to say it now. The Prop 28 money is specifically used to supplement existing arts programs. It cannot be used to supplant or pay for existing programs. So the money that comes from Prop 28 has to be additional arts education programming to what it is that LEAs are currently doing. It is not a way to backfill that expenditures, but it is a way to increase expenditures. And when we get to, in January, looking at the reporting, one of the things that schools will be required to do is to report on existing expenditures in arts education and the supplemental spending based on the Prop 28 money. Unless there is a real budget crisis, remember, this Prop 28 money is going to keep flowing. And even if they do suspend Prop 98, they very rarely do it for more than a year. So that this money is going to keep flowing through LEAs in the state of California. Now, a little bit more background information, especially for teacher ed. And that is that several other things happened in advance of Prop 28. I was interviewed by someone who said, "Oh, you must have known that Prop 28 was coming because you got so involved with theater and dance credentials." And I had to say, I wish I had been that prescient, but it was just luck. So in SB 916 in 2016 is referred to as the TDA Act with an exclamation point, written by Senator Ben Allen of Santa Monica. And that capped a 40-year battle to revive theater and dance credentials in the state of California. They had been inadvertently omitted 40 years ago in a piece of legislation because someone had written art instead of arts. There was a piece of legislation that said art and music instead of arts and music. So it took us 40 years to get that back. That happened in 2016. In order to implement those credentials, we first had to write new standards. So that happened in 2019. Then we had to write a new framework. That happened in 2020. And that then recognized the 5 content areas that I mentioned earlier: dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts. And the first dance and theater credentials were issued by my institution, California State University, East Bay, in 21-22. And we are now in our 3rd cohort of theater and dance credential candidates. Very exciting. So what does all of this mean for teacher education? Well, one of the things that it means is that LEAs, school districts, are scrambling to find qualified people to teach the arts TK-12. And whether that is classified or certificated people in some parts of the state, that is a real problem. They simply do not exist. I was at a meeting yesterday and we were talking about, even with the funding, it's still a challenge to find teaching artists who can go into schools. So there is a workforce issue here. Schools now have the funds to pay for credentialed teachers in music and the arts, and there are not enough of them. Currently, there are less than 10 IHEs offering theater and dance credentials in the state. I believe last I looked, it was only 2 institutions offering dance. So that is a real workforce issue that we can start to address. There's about 50 plus IHEs across the state that offer music and or visual arts credentials, and that's great. But I have to tell you, those students, those candidates are really snapped up in a hurry. Last year, when I was teaching the theater methods, a large urban district that shall remain unnamed, but has a very vigorous arts program, came to my class and offered all of the students, all of the theater students in class, a job. They needed 75 elementary theater teachers, and they were willing to offer all 25 of my students pretty much a job on the spot. It was very funny, but I live in Northern California. No, Southern California is a great place to live. So that there is a real shortage. As Prop 28 money begins to flow this year, as I said, LEAs are actively seeking teachers in the arts, especially in dance and theater. And Prop 28 money can be used for teachers with CTE credentials and for classified instructors. This is not always the most favored path for LEAs and for their unions. And it should also be pointed out that CTE instructors in arts, media, and entertainment use a different set of more industry-oriented standards. One is not better than the other, although in many districts, CTE credentialed teachers are not necessarily on an equitable rate of pay as teachers with general education credentials. So while CTE is important, and I actually urge all of my candidates getting theater and visual art credentials to go ahead and get a CTE credential too, as well. That's one way that we can work with those students, this need. So if you are considering adding a dance or a theater credential program, especially if you're in teacher ed, remember, and I've found this over the last 5 or 6 years, that dance and theater programs, departments across campus, don't know anything about the credentialing process. They haven't had any real role within teacher credentialing for 40 years, so there is no institutional knowledge about what teacher credentialing means and the differences and the nuances and the regulations of teacher credentialing. So if you are in teacher ed looking to partner with your cross-campus partners, there's going to be some education within those departments about what those credentials mean. All of you know this, but it bears repeating, is the process for approval at your campus level can take a long time. And also when you're introducing a new credential program, CTC approval can take a long time, probably not as long as your campus approval. I am happy to share the matrix documents that I did for dance and theater for the CTC when we activated our credentials. So all you need to do is write me about that. It is also really helpful to talk to your LEA partners about what exactly their needs are in terms of arts teachers and what it is that they're hoping to do, to get involved with their conversations with their communities about how it is that they move forward into Prop 28, which is a very exciting thing to be doing. To start to talk to them about arts teachers' pathways, and to start thinking about residencies. Currently, under the residency model, and I see Jacqueline there. Hello, Jacqueline. The teacher residency grants, I believe it's February 14th is when the next application are due. And there will be ways that you can look at arts residencies under those. More information will be forthcoming about that. We hope that perhaps arts teachers even become a designated shortage area. Couple of other things that you should just be aware of. English and PE credential holders with documents issued prior to January 2022 have theater and dance automatically embedded in their credentials. However, and it's a big however, this is not noted or stated anywhere on the CTC website, nor on the credential itself. And despite what the CTC keeps telling me, district analysts are not aware of this fact. So there is also some communication that needs to happen between university analysts and district credential analysts, that someone with an English credential from 2018 has a theater credential. There is also a big need across the state for dance and theater methods courses for currently credentialed teachers who are seeking a second credential. We have one that I think is going to be offered spring at CSUEB, and I have 60 theater people who want to enroll in that course in order to add that credential. So that has a lot to do. Now, this is really important, and I'll send you to a resource in just a few minutes. There are supplemental authorizations available for both multiple and single subject credentialed teachers in all of the arts. There is a special single subject added authorization in theater and dance and added authorizations require a certain amount of undergraduate or upper division coursework in the field. Those supplemental credentials, and I've been over this with CTC and with the legal department at CTC, those special supplemental credentials for single subject credentialed teachers have the same weight and allow them to teach any of the same courses that a credentialed dance or theater teacher could teach. Also, there are supplemental authorizations for multiple subject candidates and teachers who could teach the arts TK through 9, if in particular art fields. So we should not forget those supplemental areas and what they can do. And one other thing to add, as we look at this pipeline and building a pipeline, is that as we build capacity within higher education to have more dance, theater, visual art, and music teachers credentialed, we also need to be able to work with our district partners to think about how they can use a special permit so that if there are not enough places within higher education this year, they may still hire a teaching artist, perhaps that they've worked with, under a special permit, and that gives that teaching artist further experience in the classroom. It buys them a year before they have to get into a credential program, in which case they could transition to an intern credential, and then once they complete whatever program they're in, they could get the preliminary credential. So that there are ways to think about how to expand the amount of time someone spends teaching and working in a classroom to get a credential. And I know that several districts that I've talked to are very much interested in how that works. So what does it mean for teacher education? A couple of things that are just a couple of models I want to talk about. At East Bay, we have music, visual art, dance, and theater, and that is all housed in our single subject online credential program, which enables us to draw across the state for candidates, which is especially important right now because there are so few programs, especially offering theater and dance. Ours is an online program. The CTC requires only one methods course, obviously in single subject, to meet meet their requirements. CSU East Bay, as a model, has always had a sequential 3-semester sequence of methods, simply because we believe that you can teach a lot of all of the other complex things that you need to teach in teacher education in the context of the subject area. And I think that that works particularly well. But any model of credential program is important at this point. Access is important, so that students who want to get these credentials have an opportunity to do so. I believe there's a number, 3 or 4 programs that have opened in Southern California, and dance as well. So we're slowly growing, but we need to keep that momentum going. I also want to call upon our colleague at San Marcos. Cal State San Marcos is doing a really interesting program with their multiple subject candidates, especially those who are in the undergraduate liberal studies. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Christina.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, everyone. So I just would like to tell and share what we are doing. We have a team of people working on this initiative. We figured that as we were looking into Prop 28, all arts majors and minors already have the credits necessary to receive the supplemental authorization to teach in their arts discipline in the K-9 classroom, if they get a multiple subject credential. So that has been our focus. The School of Arts faculty are working hand in hand with the School of Education to benefit and support the future of arts teachers. So what we're doing right now is we are recruiting all of our arts majors and minors in all of the disciplines to really entice them for a career as an art teacher. We had a huge kickoff on November 4th, where we explained all the different credential pathways. So right now we're working with faculty in each discipline to identify a pathway in the majors and minors for classes that are best suited for teaching. We are creating an arts cohort within the multiple subject program where future arts teachers and will have faculty who pay attention to arts and arts integration. That we are kicking off in fall 2024. And then we are working with the Department of Education and the California Residency Lab with our school district partners to provide that paid opportunity. So Eric had mentioned the residency application. So we are planning on submitting those very soon. We have a few of our partners who are really excited about this possibility for our teachers. So we're working on those proposals. We have identified just a small number of school districts, but we figured we can always scale up. And then we can also look with the Prop 28 funding for a sustainable future for the residency should money run out from the state grants. We're also identifying mentors for our students and future teachers from existing art teacher pools, teaching artists in the region. And then we're also tapping into the nonprofit arts organizations, as well as our industry partners to support our students by providing them access to the organization's museums, facilities, as well as professional development opportunities they can provide. We are looking to, in the future, probably a year from now, creating an ARTSA, which is like a beginning teacher support network to support our new arts teachers in the field. And then we are simultaneously through all this developing a single subject credential for the arts, so that we will have that programming in the methods courses that they need so that they can be credentialed. So that's what we're doing. We're doing a lot. There's a team of people behind it.
Just one other thing I want to reiterate is really important, and that I so appreciate about what you're doing, is they have really strong partnerships with LEAs in North County, so that it is partnerships across campus at San Marcos, but also strong partnerships with their LEAs. And if you do want to work on a residency grant, remember that comes out of an LEA, not out of an IAG. So I just really, really admire the strength of the partnerships that you all have with your districts, and how well you all, I get to zoom in occasionally and watch how happy they are to be in the same room together.
Thank you, everyone.
So, a couple of things. I did some work for CCTE, and the document is here, and there's a link to the document there. Hold on just a second. I know I should have had this right in front of me. Oh, it's because I've got my background down. So it's a document called Thanks to Prop 28, School Districts Need Arts Teachers, and it explains from the point of view of IAGs how you can get credentials, pathways to getting teachers credentialed. This idea of using special permits, internships, and preliminaries so that you can stretch things out. All of that is contained in this document, as well as links to all of the pertinent CTC web pages. It also has a portion in this document for anyone who's interested in becoming an arts teacher. So you can click on that and download that whenever you want. Something else that is important in terms of partners, if you're thinking about this, the professional organizations have just been stellar in supporting these credentials and these programs. California Dance Education Association, California Educational Theater Association, California Music Educators Association, and California Art Education Association. Especially dance and theater have been really great about helping us to secure placements, to secure cooperating teachers, and they are a great resource for you if you're in Southern California. They're both really strong organizations and are just excited to be partners and help with all of this. So those professional organizations are key. I am always willing to take questions, and maybe I'll have some answers. If you would love to participate in the CCTE Arts Special Interest Group, I put Nadia's email there. So we would love to have more people in our SIG. And if you want more information, I put Meryl's email down at CSU San Marcos. And they've had strong arts education support for a long time. And Meryl Goldberg has written the book on arts integration, really. So they're also very strong in arts integration as well, which is another component. What questions do you all have, if any? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I will open the chat.
There was one question in the chat earlier. Is there no grade 9 level limit for the arts supplemental authorizations?
Yes, I'm Robin Perry. I asked that question, and I had some others related to those supplementary authorizations, but it did seem, Eric, like you made it sound like there was no grade 9 level limit for those, but then Christiane said teaching up to grade 9 in those areas for multiple subject candidates. So I'd like a little clarification from your perspectives on that.
So we're both right. The supplemental authorization for multiple subject teachers is K through 9. If you are a single subject credential holder and you want to add a special supplementary authorization, it's called a specific supplementary authorization, that enables you to teach any classes that adhere to dance and theater standards, K through 12.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then my follow-up question around supplementary authorizations, I've been working with my departmental colleagues to look at what package of courses would achieve that for folks, both in our undergrad programs and then also credential holders. I'm a little hesitant though, because we have not had a long history of people applying successfully for supplementary authorization. So how do you have the confidence that once you say take these courses, you'll be able to do multiple subjects and teach this area through grade 9, that when they take their transcripts to CTC, those will be granted?
So that's a great question. Because I was actually the one who in the CTC literature found this specific supplemental authorization for single subject. They didn't even know it was there. And so I found it, we went through it with legal, and oh yes, indeed, it does exist. So there is a education that needs to happen to the CTC about all of and ins and outs that they have on their books. So, you know, one of the things that I would say is give them the information that is contained on their web pages. And in that document that I wrote, all of those pages have links to it, so you can look them up. And we will continue talking to the CTC to remind them of the importance of this. They are very cognizant of this looming teacher, or not looming, of this teacher shortage in the arts. And the more we talk to them about it, the more we communicate with them. We had a meeting with San Marcos and CTC, which we explained what we were doing there. And I would say they were impressed, but hadn't, and surprised that somebody had thought of that. So it's just an ongoing education for the CTC. Any other questions, Robin?
I just wondered if, you know, there's any hesitancy around, you know, advertising for supporting a program that's going to be built upon this set of courses when you really haven't had anyone apply successfully for it. So, I mean, that's where we are and what we're talking about. Hopefully, if more IHEs are looking into doing this, we could get more confidence from the CTC that these will be granted.
That's a good point. And I will make it a note, go back to my friends, the CTC, and remind them of this. The other thing, the other educational component that has to happen is also district credential analysts who may not have a lot of experience with arts credentials. Actually, you make me think that this is a conversation that we need to bring up again with the professional organizations. The CTC reacts best when you get a legislator reminding them of their duties. And Senator Allen of Santa Monica has been very, very friendly to the arts education community. So we're working with him on a number of other things. So we'll bring that back up. It's Dean Williams.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hey there, Eric. Haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
So I want to kind of follow up with Robin's inquiry. So my understanding, I should say not only my understanding, my expectation is that we as IHEs put together a quality argument for we put together a curriculum that we send to the CTC. The CCT recognizes it as a sufficient curriculum for this supplementary authorization. And then when we have people on our campuses, usually faculty, that say, yeah, check it off, that makes sense. So it should be a pre-approved authorization. And I'm trying to understand why the CTC, in your case, Robin, is second guessing what was pre-approved and put together?
I'm not saying that we've had anybody denied either. We just don't have any experience with people taking a set of a set of courses. So we haven't had anybody denied, and we haven't had anybody accepted, as we're looking at putting together this coursework that we think will meet all the requirements. And we have looked at the documentation very closely. We think it would meet all the requirements. It's just hard to advertise it and recruit students based on that when you don't have it. I did email the credentials office at the CTC, seeing if there was any way that we could put together a proposal or a sample application and have it reviewed, but I haven't heard back yet.
Okay, that helps me. So Eric, I think you'll follow up after I'm done with my comment. I'm a former associate dean. I'm a dean. I should be acting like a dean, but I'm acting like an associate dean right now. It seems like what you need to do is get that supplemental authorization approved so you can advertise for it. And it's that simple. And you should have, and in my opinion, you should have 100% confidence once it's approved by the CTC that when you have some professional within your university or college approving it, that it's going to be subsequently approved at CTC level. At least that's been my experience with other supplemental authorizations and added authorizations, et cetera. If that doesn't happen, then that's why I was getting on. It's like, why wouldn't they approve something that you've already put together? So there you go. Back to you, Eric.
Well, this conversation came up when we were talking to the San Marcos and the CTC, and they were very reticent to look at this set of courses is the set of courses at Cal State San Marcos that meets the added authorization. That's not how the Ed Code is written. The Ed Code is much more general, and it is a number of units in the field, so that even if there is here's a great set of courses for you to take to get the added authorization, a student could very well take a different set of courses and still get the added authorization based on the number of units they're taking. So the CTC was hesitant about approving those specific programs. Is that anything to add to that, Christiane?
No, I think, because our group actually did carve out, like, these are the courses, and we did put it before the CTC, and they said as long as it fits the description. And I think the document that Eric has, the one that you were holding up, Eric, I think that one was the most helpful to us in really trying to carve out which coursework we need to include in those pathways. I know that we also need to rename some of our courses, even though the content is there, it's just not in the title. And that was one of their recommendations as well, is just to make sure that it doesn't need to fit exactly, but it needs to have those elements that are listed. So that's really all I think input I have on it.
I will, if everybody would be, please drop your email, if I don't have it, in the chat. I will send you a link to the slide deck, and also then a link to the webinar video once it's posted on the CCTE YouTube page. Trying to see if there's any other questions. Nadia, have I missed anything?
No.
Since when did I make you in charge, Nadia?
No, but I've got I've collected the email addresses for those who want to be added to our SIG. And then I will save the ones who want the slide deck as well.
All right. So if there's no other questions, I don't want to take up any more of your time, and we all near the end of semesters and we're getting very, very busy. But it was a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope we have more conversations about this. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you, Dean Williams, for attending. I really appreciate that. And thank you all. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.